In total, there are 12 cranial nerves are there. The first one is olfactory nerve. The function is carries a sensation of smell. Second is optic nerve. Name itself suggests it carries sensation of vision. Third is oculomotor nerve. It supplies the eyeball muscles. So that is why it helps in the movement of the eyeball. Fourth is trochlear nerve. It supplies superior oblique muscle, again involved in the movement of eyeball. Fifth is trigeminal nerve. It carries the sensation of the face, sinuses and teeth, and it is motor to the mastication muscles. Sixth is abducent nerve. It supplies the external rectus muscle, which is again one of the muscle of eye movement. So 3, 4, 6 are involved in the eye movement. Seventh is facial nerve. It supplies the muscles of the face, and it also carries taste sensation from the anterior two-third of the tongue. Eighth is vestibulocochlear nerve, where the vestibular portion is for the equilibrium and cochlear portion is for the hearing. Then ninth is glossopharyngeal nerve. Name itself suggests, so it supplies the pharyngeal musculature and it is sensory for the posterior tooth of the tongue for the taste sensation. Tenth is vagus nerve, so it is having a motor and sensory function to the viscera of the body. 11th is accessory nerve and it supplies the sternocleidomastoid and trapezius muscles. 12th is hypoglossal nerve which supplies the muscles of the tongue and help in the movement of the tongue. So these are the 12 cranial nerves which are present. But in today's practical, we will discuss about the optic nerve, that is the second cranial nerve. Now functions of the optic nerve, as I said, optic nerve function is the related to the vision, but vision has three portions. The first one is field of vision. So what is field of vision? It is the area of the visual field observed by single eye with a fixed gaze. So what the area the single eye sees is known as the field of vision. Then the second portion is visual acuity. Acuity means sharpness. So it is the sharpness of the vision or resolving power of the eye. How much sharp an eye can see. That is known as visual acuity. And the last is color vision. So name itself suggests it is the ability of the eye to see different types of colors. So ability to identify colors presented to the eye is known as color vision. So there are three portions of optic nerve functions. One is field of vision, second is visual acuity, and then the color vision. So this is the basic background of the optic nerve examination. Now let's start today's practical. So second cranial nerve examination, as I said, the second cranial nerve examination contains three portions, that is field of vision, visual acuity and color vision. Because these three topics are very wide and very large, so we have divided into two portions. In today's practical, we'll discuss only about the field of vision. The visual acuity and color vision will be discussed in the part 2. So without wasting time, I am Dr. Gitesh Dubal. Let's start today's practical of second cranial nerve examination part 1. So field of vision. So field of vision definition is part of the space projected on the retina when the eye gaze is fixed. So when the eye gaze is fixed, the amount of the space that is projected onto the retina is known as the field of vision. So field of vision is the area that a single eye can see when its movement is fixed. There are two types of field of vision. One is peripheral field of vision, which in general we say field of vision. So whenever we say field of vision, it is usually peripheral field of vision. Where central field of vision is known as visual acuity, because the sharpness of vision is present in the center of the vision. So central field of vision is visual acuity. Whenever we say field of vision, it usually refers to the peripheral field of vision. And peripheral field of vision is function of rods. So peripheral field of vision is function of rods, while central field of vision is a function of cones. Now, what are the terminology temporal and nasal sides? So as you can see, the nasal field of vision. So whenever we project the field of vision, the side which is closer to the nose, that is the medial side, is known as nasal field of vision. While the side of field of vision which is closer to the temporal side, it is known as temporal field, temporal region of the skull. So temporal region of the skull is the temporal field of vision or the lateral side, and the medial side is known as the nasal field of vision. So basically they have changed the terminology for field of vision. The medial side is known as nasal field of vision and the lateral side is known as temporal field of vision. So what are the methods to measure the field of vision? First one is the perimetry. This is we are going to discuss in today's practical. So here we use an instrument known as Priestley Smith perimeter. So Priestley Smith perimeter is instrument. Remember the name of this instrument because this instrument can be asked in examination. You may be shown this instrument in spotting and you have to identify the name of the instrument. So name of the instrument is Priestley Smith perimeter. Advantage of this method is it produces accurate mapping of the field of vision, but disadvantage it requires an instrument. So you need to purchase this instrument to identify the field of vision of the subject. The second one is the confrontation test. So in the confrontation test, what we do, we consider the examiner as having the normal field of vision and compare the field of vision of the examiner with the field of vision of the subject. Here we use a hand to compare the field of vision of the examiner and the subject. The advantage is that we does not require any instrument. So just we can use our hand to get a rough idea of the field of vision of the subject. But the disadvantage is less accurate. As I said, it just gives a rough idea. It will not give accurate mapping of the field of vision of the subject. So that is the confrontation test. The last one is the computerized perimetry. Here we use a digital instrument to map the field of vision of the subject. So a computerized instrument is used to do the perimetry of the subject. The advantage is it is highly accurate, more accurate than the perimeter, but the disadvantage is it is extremely costly. So these are the three methods: perimetry, confrontation test, and computerized perimetry, which is used to measure the field of vision of the subject. Now let's see the demonstration video of the instruments like perimeter and the perimetry chart that has been used. Okay, so this is Priestley Smith's perimeter and this is the adjustable chin rest. So you can adjust the chin according to the height of the subject. These are the chin cups. This is the leveling bar which is removable. So this is leveling bar. This is the metallic arc. Okay, and this is the movable object. Now this object can be moved and slide over the metallic arc. Not only that, you can change the color of the object also. As you can see, now it is green, now it is purple, now it is red, now it is yellow. So you can change the color of the object. Also you can change the size of the object. It is now 10 millimeter, then 5 millimeter square, then circle and smaller circle. So you can change the size of the object also. Usually standard is you have to put 10 millimeter size and white color. So this is the movable object. This is the metallic arc. This is the fixation spot, white color dot. This is the fixation spot. This is the black metallic disc. Then this is the fixing screw for fixing the metallic arc. So this is a fixing screw for fixing the metallic arc. Okay, this is the metallic frame for fixing the chart. So this is a metallic frame for fixing the chart. This is the scale which shows various isopters. Okay, so this is a scale showing various isopters. This is a marker which punches the mark on the chart. This is removable, as you can remove the scale for fixing the chart. This is the frame of fixing the chart. So you have to unscrew it and fix the chart here. So these are the various parts of the Priestley Smith perimeter. Now let's move into the perimetry chart. What is there in the perimetry chart? Perimetry chart is present in this box in the perimeter. Now this is the perimetry chart. As you can see, it contains various circles and various radii. So these circles are representation of isopters. Okay, so this is 10-degree isopter, this is 20-degree isopter, this is 30-degree isopter, 40. So isopters are at an interval of 10 degrees. So from 10, 20, 30, 40 circles are formed, and the radii are known as meridians, and they are at a degree of 15 degrees. So as you can see, it is written 165 here, then it is written 180, then it is written again 165, then 150, 135. So it is at an angle of 15 degree. So meridians are at the 15-degree angle and isopters are at the 10-degree angle. Now these rounded circles are the blind spots, but these blind spots of left and right are of the scotometer, not of the perimeter. So the perimeter blind spot will be somewhere nearer, closer to the inner circle. So don't follow these blind spots. These blind spots are of scotometer. Now another thing you can see is these are the dotted lines. This dotted line indicates the left eye normal field of vision, and the straight line, black line that you can see is the normal field of vision for the right eye. So left and right eye normal field of vision are already charted in the perimeter chart, so that you can compare the field of vision of the subject with the normal chart. So that is why in single chart you will contain both the eyes normal field of vision. So this is about the perimeter
chart.
So what is the normal range of field of vision of a person? So you should know the normal value of the field of vision of any person. It is divided into four parts: the superior part, the inferior part, the temporal or the lateral part, and the nasal or the medial part. So superiorly, it ranges from 40 to 60 degree. From 40 to 60 degree is the range for superior field of vision. For inferior, it is 60 to 75 degrees. So inferior, it is 60 to 75 degree is the field of vision of a normal person. Medially, it is 50 to 60 degree of the field of vision for the normal person. And laterally, it is 90 to 100 degree of the field of vision for a normal person. So these are the ranges of field of vision for a normal person. If you want to get the perspective why these values are there, then remember that in the superior part it is 60 degree is there because our bone, frontal bone, interferes with the field of vision of our eye. So that is why the range of the field of vision is limited by the frontal bone or the bony eyebrow process that is present in the frontal bone. Then in the lower portion, the 75 degree field of vision is there because of the cheek portion that is inhibiting the field of vision. In the nasal side, the field of vision is 60 degree because nose is interfering with the field of vision. But laterally, there is no interference of field of vision. So the range of field of vision is highest in the temporal side, that is 100. On the lateral side, there is no interference in the field of vision. So the highest field of vision is in the temporal side. So remember this, that the temporal side, the field of vision will be the highest one. So this is about the range of the field of vision of any normal person. So this is one another instrument that is known as Lister's perimeter. Now this Lister's perimeter, if you compare with the Priestley-Smith perimeter, contains the full half arc of the metallic arc. Okay, so here the metallic arc is in full half circle, while in Priestley-Smith perimeter only quarter of the circle was there of the metallic arc. So this is the Lister's perimeter. It is different from the Priestley-Smith perimeter. Sometimes the examiner may ask about the another type of perimeter. Then the name is Lister's perimeter. Lister was the scientist who invented this instrument. That is why it is known as Lister's perimeter. Even in the spotting, this may be asked. So remember, when half arc metallic arc is present, it is Lister's perimeter. When quarter of the circle of the metallic arc is present, then it is Priestley-Smith perimeter. Now, what are the precautions we need to carry out before performing the perimetry? The first one is it should have well lit environment. Preferably natural sunlight is the best way to conduct the perimetry. If the person is wearing the spectacles, then we need to ask the subject to remove the spectacles because the edges of the spectacle may interfere with the field of vision. So first of all, we need to ask the subject to remove the spectacle and then carry out the procedure. Then we need to test each eye separately. So whenever the examination of perimetry comes in your practical examination, make sure that you test each eye of the subject separately one by one. Then you have to use the white color and the largest size of the object. Okay, the largest size is 10 millimeter and white color is because it is having the largest field of vision. The color and the size of object will change the field of vision. So we usually use the white color and the largest size of the object to standardize the procedure. Then second thing is make sure the subject focuses only on the white dot that is shown. In the procedure, I will tell you that the person has to look onto the white dot. Then make sure that the subject is looking continuously on the white dot and not moving his eye. If he moves his eye, then the gaze is not fixed. Then the field of vision cannot be determined. So make sure the subject only looks at the white dot so that his gaze is fixed. The next point is perform blind spot detection in the last step. The blind spot detection is to be carried out at the last step of the procedure. And we need to perform a trial run before starting the actual practical because that will acclimatize the subject for the object detection. Otherwise, the subject will find it difficult to identify the object. So make sure you acclimatize the subject by doing a trial run. So these are the precautions we need to take care before starting the practical of perimetry. Now let's see the demonstration video of how the procedure of perimetry is done.
So now we'll discuss the procedure of how to do the perimetry. Okay. So first of all, we have to decide which eye to be tested. Suppose I want to test his right eye. Then we have to adjust the chin rest according to that. Suppose I want to test his right eye, then I will ask the subject to put his chin on the left side. It is right, ડાબી side. તમારી દાઢી રાખો. Yes. Okay. Then what we have to see, this leveling bar white portion should touch his lower eyelid. થોડાક આગળ આવો. As you can see, it is slightly touching his eye. થોડાક પાછળ જાઓ. Slightly lower the chin rest. થોડાક આગળ આવો. Now it is at the level સામે જો. It is slightly lower. Let me raise it. Yes. So now this white portion is touching his lower eyelid. So now his chin rate is exactly in proportion with the fixation point. So his vision is in straight line with the fixation point. So there is no need of the leveling bar. થોડાક પાછળ જાઓ. પાછળ મોટું લીધું. So we have to remove the leveling bar. Make sure we don't hurt the subject. So now the leveling bar roll is over. So make sure you remove the leveling bar. Now the next step we have to do is we have to fix this metallic arc on the temporal side of his eye. The temporal side is the lateral side and the nasal side is the medial side. So because his right eye we need to test, we ask the subject to close his left eye. ડાબી આંખ બંધ કરી નાખો. So his right eye temporal side, that is the lateral side, is here. So we have to fix the metallic arc at a horizontal, exactly horizontal at 180 degree. Neither up, neither lower, exactly horizontal. So this is how we have to fix the metallic arc, exactly horizontal with the parallel to the ground. Okay. Once that is done, you can rest. So now fix the metallic arc on the temporal side. We have to fix with this fixation screw. Now we have to come to the fixation of the chart, which is very important portion of the perimetry. So we have to take the chart. As you already seen the chart, remember that the blind spot is always on the temporal side. Okay, so this is the right eye blind spot, this is the left eye blind spot. We are testing the right eye. So this portion is the temporal side of the right eye. So make sure wherever the blind spot is there, that is the temporal side of the eye. Okay, so now we have to unscrew the scale, lower it, unscrew the frame, open the frame. Then we have to fold the chart at 4 corners so that it gets easily fixed onto the chart. Now this is the temporal side and this scale should remain on the temporal side. So the right side portion, we have to fix the chart like this. So always keep the temporal side on your right side. So as an examiner, this temporal side should always remain on the right side, whether it is right eye or left eye. So it doesn't matter. For you, it is always on the right side. So make sure you put a hole at exactly center of the chart. Like this. As you can see, there is more paper on the top portion. So I will fold on the top also. On the bottom also. Put the frame back and make sure that the pointer should touch the 90-degree horizontal level. Now as you can see, it is slightly above the 90 degree. So we have to slightly move the chart. So don't fix the chart immediately because we have to adjust according to that. Now you can see it is exactly touching the 90-degree temporal. This is the 90-degree temporal portion. It is exactly touching the 90-degree temporal. So it is perfect in position. So now I can fix it. Now again make sure it is on the 90 degree. As you can see, it is exactly on the 90 degree. So now fix the scale also. So now everything is set up. So this is how we have to fix the chart. Make sure the metallic arc is on the temporal side and the temporal side of that eye is on the fixation chart. Now we have to ask the subject to close his non-testing eye. So right now it is left eye. So I'll ask the subject to close his left eye. Safed tapka upar janu. Ask the subject to only look on the white dot present at straight front. Okay. Don't ask the subject to look around for the movable object. This is very important. If subject moves the eye, then the visual field will not be appropriately been charted. So make sure, and you also see that the patient is not moving his eye. he should focus only on the white dot. सफेद टपका ऊपर જ જોજો. So now I will move the object and ask the subject to raise his hand when he sees the object in his field. Okay. હવે સફેદ ટપકા ઉપર જોઈએ તે હવે વસ્તુ તમારી નજરમાં આવે એટલે હાથ ઉપર કરજો. જરાક નજરમાં આવે તરત જ હાથ ઉપર કરજો. Yes. So as you can see, it is marked at the 70 degree. So I'll put the pointer on the 70 degree and punch it. Make sure you punch properly. Now I have to rotate at 15 into 3, that is 45 degree meridian. So how we have to rotate? So this is the one meridian. You can see this line and this line, these two are meridians. Okay, radii are meridians. So this is one meridian, this is second meridian. The angle between them is 15 degree. So I have to rotate 3 meridians. So 1, 2 and 3. So I will unscrew this like this. So 1, 2 and 3. So here it is. So at 45 degree meridians, I will test another test. Okay, so I will fix it like this. I will move the object to the farthest point. Ask the subject to focus on the white dot. સફેદ ટપકા ઉપર જોજો. નજરમાં આવે એટલે મને કહેજો. હાથ ઉપર કરજો. નજરમાં આવે એટલે હાથ ઉપર કરજો. નજરમાં આવે એટલે હાથ ઉપર કરજો. Okay. So now at 60 degree, he is able to see. So I will move the pointer to the 60 degree and punch it. Now again I will rotate it 45 degree meridian. So I will unscrew it. 1, 2 and 3. So it will be exactly on the top side. I will move the movable object to the farthest point. Ask the subject to focus on the white dot. સફેદ ટપકા ઉપર જોજો. નજરમાં આવે એટલે મને કહેજો. જોતા રહેજો. નજરમાં આવે એટલે મને કહેજો. હાથ ઉપર કરજો. Okay. So now at 50 degree, he is able to view the object. So at 50 degree, I'll punch it. Again, I will move the 45 degree meridian. So 1, 2 and 3. Move the object to the farthest point. સફેદ ટપકા ઉપર જુઓ. દેખાય એટલે હાથ ઉપર કરજો. બરાબર? દેખાય એટલે હાથ ઉપર કરજો. Okay. So again at 50 degree, he is able to view the object. At 50 degree, I have to punch. Again, I will move 45 degree. Again, it will become horizontal. સફેદ ટપકા ઉપર જોજો. નજરમાં આવે એટલે મને કહેજો. નજરમાં આવે તો કહેજો. Okay. So again at 60 degree he is able to view the object. So at 60 degree I will punch it. 1, 2 and 3. So again 45 degree meridian I will move. સફેદ ટપકા ઉપર જોજો. સતત એમાં જોતા રહેજો. તમારી નજરમાં આવે એટલે મને કહેજો. સામે નહીં નીચે નહીં જોવાનું. સફેદ ટપકા ઉપર જ જુઓ. સફેદ ટપકા ઉપર જોજો. તમારી નજરમાં આવે એટલે મને કહેજો. So at 40 degree is able to view the object. Again rotating. It will be exactly down. સફેદ ટપકા ઉપર જોજો. સફેદ ટપકા ઉપર જ જોજો. મારી નજરમાં આવે એટલે કહેજો. સફેદ ટપકા ઉપર જ જોજો. નજરમાં આવે એટલે કહેજો. So at 60 degree is able to view. Mark it. In 45 degree angle. 1, 2 and 3. સફેદ ટપકા ઉપર જોજો. તમને દેખાય છે વસ્તુ? દેખાય એટલે કહેજો, જેવું દેખાય એટલે કહેજો. Okay. So at 80 degree is able to view the object. Now if I rotate again 45 degree, you will notice that it will again come to horizontal level, the same level where we started. Now we have to test the blind spot. Now for the blind spot, we have to do is that we have to make the circle size of the object smaller, because blind spot is very small one. So you have to make the blind spot smaller, the small circle. And usually the blind spot is between 30 and 15 degrees. So between 50 and 30 degree, the blind spot will be there. So ask the subject to raise his hand when he stops seeing the white object. Now he has to only focus on the white object. And when he stops seeing the white object, mark the point. Second time, when he starts seeing the object, mark the point. That is the starting and ending of the blind spot. So this is how you have to do. Okay. હવે હિતેશભાઈ, જો આ તમને સફેદ કલરનું દેખાય છે, આ સફેદ કલરનું ચકેડું, એ ચકેડું એક સમય એવો આવશે કે તમને દેખાવાનું બંધ થાય. દેખાવાનું બંધ થાય એટલે હાથ ઉપર કરવાનું, પછી પાછું દેખાવાનું ચાલુ થાય એટલે હાથ ઉપર કરવાનું. બરાબર? હવે તમને આ સફેદ ચકેડું, એ સફેદ ટપકા ઉપર જુઓ. બરાબર? અને સફેદ ચકેડું જે છે એ દેખાવાનું બંધ થાય એટલે મને કહેજો. દેખાવાનું બંધ થાય એટલે મને કહેજો. સફેદ ટપકા જોઈએ, સફેદ ટપકું બંધ થાય દેખાવાનું એટલે મને કહેજો. સફેદ ન દેખાય ને સામે જ જોતા રહ્યો, ન દેખાય એટલે હાથ ઉપર કરજો. એક સમય તમને સફેદ દેખાશે નહીં. ઓકે. So 20 degree is not able to see the blind spot. હવે સફેદ પાછું દેખાય ત્યારે મને કહેજો. સફેદ પાછું દેખાવા માંડે એટલે મને કહેજો. So now at 15 degree is able to see the white object. So this is starting and end of the blind spot. So that completes the right eye. Now what we have to do? We have to unscrew the scale, unscrew the chart, remove the chart, take the pen, mark the temporal side. So this is the temporal side, first point, then 1, 2 and 3. So if you are not able to see where the spot is there, on the back side you can see the mark. So here it is. This is the mark. This is the mark. And then we have to mark the blind spot. So this is the starting and end of blind spot. So make a vertical line and connect this. So this is the blind spot of that person. Okay. So now we have to join this line. Start from the temporal side, join the dots like this. And at 135 degree angle, keep it open like this, because this is a portion where the visual field is more than 90, that is 100 degree. So that is why we cannot join these two dots. So make sure on the temporal side, on the lower part, you keep this portion open. Okay. So now we have marked the visual field of the person. We already know the normal field of vision. We can compare it. It is usually very close to the normal field of vision. If it is too much contracted or too much wide, then there is an abnormality. So this is the field of vision for the right eye. So what we have to write? Right eye, the name of the subject. શું નામ છે તમારું? So હિતેશભાઈ વાઘેલા. શું ઉંમર છે તમારી?
37.
Age we have to write 37 years, and the gender, that is sex, male. Okay, and the right eye. So this completes the perimetry of the person. So that completes how we have to do the perimetry. Clear?
So now to summarize the process of perimetry, first we have to ask the subject to close his one eye and place the chin on the opposite side in the chin rest. Then lower the chin rest till the top portion of the leveling bar touches the lower eyelid of the subject. Then remove the leveling bar and rotate the metallic arc on the temporal side of the eye horizontally parallel to the ground. Then fix the chart and ask the subject to focus on white dot only. Then slide the object every 10 isopters and ask the subject to raise the hand when he sees the object in his visual field. Mark the point and rotate every 45-degree meridian till full circle is complete. Now mark the blind spot at last at the temporal side horizontally. And then join all the dots in the chart and compare the visual field of the subject with the normal field of vision that is given in the perimetry chart. So this is the summary of how the perimetry is done. Now let's see the demonstration video of the confrontation test.
Now we do the confrontation test. Now this test is particularly useful when you don't have any perimetry instrument. Okay, so you can do in the peripheries like in PLCs. So in confrontation test, it is a very rough test of identifying the visual field of the person. Now here we have to assume that the examiner, that is myself, I am having a normal visual field because my visual field will be compared with the subject. So what we have to do, we have to ask the subject to close his one eye. For example, in this case, I will ask the subject to close his right eye. So when I ask him to close his right eye, I have to close my left eye. Remember this, that the examiner's eye that is closed is opposite to the eye that is closed by the subject. So if I ask the subject to close his right eye, I will close my left eye. Okay. Now I will ask the subject to look to me straight into my eye and don't look anywhere else. Okay. Now I will ask the subject to look at my finger, and whenever he sees my finger in my visual field, then he has to raise his hand. મારી આંગળી તમને દેખાય એટલે મને કહેજો, હાથ ઉપર કરજો. બરાબર? આંગળી દેખાય છે? આંગળી દેખાય છે? બરાબર? So now I have to compare his visual field with mine. As soon as I see the finger, he should also see the finger. Now on the superior side, આંગળી દેખાય છે મારી? આંગળી મારી દેખાય એટલે કહેજો, મારી સામે જોતા રહેજો. મારી આંગળી દેખાય એટલે મને કહેજો. Now on the opposite side, I have to change my hand. Otherwise, the person will get a hint. મારી આંગળી દેખાય છે? મારી આંગળી દેખાય એટલે કહેજો. આંગળી દેખાય એટલે કહેજો. મારી આંગળી દેખાય છે? મારી સામે જોતા રહેજો. આંગળી દેખાય એટલે કહેજો. So we have to move from the lateral, that is temporal side, superior side, nasal side, and inferior side. So we'll get an idea of the visual field of the person. Now the aim is that he should immediately see the finger as soon as I see the finger. Then only his visual field and my visual field are equal, and that means his visual field is normal. So this is the confrontation test.
So what is the significance of perimetry? Why we need to find out the field of vision of any subject? The reason is we want to find out whether the person is having normal field of vision or there is a visual loss in his visual field. Before that, we need to understand the visual pathway. So visual pathway usually starts from the peripheral retina. This is the peripheral retina. The nerve that is emerging from the retina is the optic nerve. When the two optic nerve from both the eyes merge together, this is known as optic chiasm. And from the optic chiasm, two nerves emerge out. This is known as optic tract. And this optic tract goes into one neuronal cell body that is known as lateral geniculate body on the both the sides. And from the lateral geniculate body, the nerve fibers that are arising is known as optic radiation. And these optic radiations are ending onto the visual cortex. So this is the visual pathway for the optic nerve. Now we need to understand the lesions at various portions of the visual pathway. Now the damage can be into the periphery of the retina. This is usually found in glaucoma. Then there may be damage in the central portion of the retina. This is known as central scotoma. Usually it happens when there is damage to the macula region. Now if there is a damage to the optic nerve, if the whole optic nerve is cut, then it will result into loss of the vision from that eye. It is known as monoocular loss. Okay, suppose if the right nerve, optic nerve is damaged, then the person will not be able to see on the right eye. If the damage is in the central portion of the optic chiasm, if the central portion of the optic chiasm is damaged, then it will result into bitemporal hemianopia or bitemporal loss is there. Usually it is found in pituitary tumors. If there is a pituitary tumor, which is the pituitary gland is usually located below the optic chiasm in the sella turcica. So when there is a pituitary tumor, it will press the central portion of the optic chiasm, and then the person will have bitemporal hemianopia. Bitemporal means both the temporal field on both the eyes will be damaged. The reason is that the nasal fibers from both the eyes are crossing over in the optic chiasm in the central portion. That is why the nasal fibers of both the eyes are damaged. Now because nasal fibers are damaged, the temporal field of vision will be lost. Okay, the nasal fibers carries the temporal field of vision, while the temporal fibers carries the nasal field of vision. Remember this. Okay, so whenever there is a damage to the nasal fibers, then it will result into the temporal field of vision loss. So that is why it is known as bitemporal hemianopia, or it is also known as heteronymous hemianopia, because different field of vision is been lost from both the eye. So either it is called heteronymous hemianopia or bitemporal hemianopia. Also, one more thing can be done is that there may be damage to the peripheral portion of optic chiasm and not the central portion. Central portion is intact and peripheral portions are damaged. Then it will result into binasal hemianopia. Why? Because the temporal fibers of both the eyes are lost. So it will result into binasal hemianopia. It is also called heteronymous hemianopia. And usually the peripheral portions of the optic chiasm are damaged when the ventricles are expanded, or if there is an expansion or obstruction to the aqueduct, then it will cause expansion of the ventricles and it will press upon the peripheral portion of the optic chiasm. Then binasal hemianopia will happen. Now what happens if the lateral geniculate body is damaged? If lateral geniculate body or optic tract is damaged, then it will result into homonymous hemianopia. Homonymous means same side of the eye is damaged. So if this left side is damaged, on both sides the left side is damaged. So here the temporal field of vision is damaged, here the nasal field of vision is damaged. So that is why it's known as homonymous hemianopia. Now why this happens? Because here the fibers of the temporal side of one eye, same eye is coming, and the nasal fiber from the opposite eye is coming. So that is why the nasal fibers of opposite fibers are damaged. So temporal field of the opposite eye is damaged. Here the temporal fibers of the same eye is damaged. So that is why nasal field of the same eye is damaged. So here the nasal field of the same eye is damaged, while the temporal field of the opposite eye is damaged, because the fibers are different. The crossing of the nasal fibers are occurring at the optic chiasm. So that is why it is known as homonymous hemianopia. Now what happens if there is a damage to the optic radiation fibers on the inner side, on the parietal side? If the parietal fibers of optic radiation are damaged, then it will result into the vision loss on the lower quadrant of the eyeball or the visual field. So the lower quadrant of the visual field will be having the vision loss. So that is why it is known as quadrantopia, or another name is in the pie on the floor. Why? Because the pie portion is present in the lower side. So that is why it is known as pie on the floor or quadrantopia. So this happens when there is a damage to the fibers on the parietal side or the inner side of the optic radiation. When the outer fibers of optic radiation are damaged, then it will result into vision loss on the upper side of the quadrant of the visual field. So that is why again it is called quadrantopia, but it is on the right temporal. So temporal side of the fibers are damaged. It is also known as pie on the sky. Here it is pie on the floor, here it is a pie on the sky. So these are the visual field defects which are present in various scenarios when various sides of optic pathway or the visual pathway is damaged. So you need to remember these various conditions because it can be asked in Viva. Now another common condition of visual field defect is known as glaucoma. In Gujarati we also call it as jamarva. Now what happens in normal eye? The aqueous humor that is present in the anterior cavity, it is produced from the ciliary process in the posterior chamber. From this, the aqueous humor passes through the pupil and enters into the anterior chamber, and it is drained in the trabecular meshwork and goes into the canal of Schlemm. So this is a normal pathway of aqueous humor from the ciliary body, posterior chamber, through the pupil into the anterior chamber, and drained through the trabecular meshwork into the canal of Schlemm. Now what happens in glaucoma is that this trabecular meshwork gets blocked. Now because it gets blocked, the aqueous humor is continuously produced, but there is no drainage. There is a blockage to the drainage. So that aqueous humor continuously gets accumulated into the anterior cavity. Now it pushes onto the lens. Then the lens pushes onto the posterior cavity containing the vitreous humor. And this vitreous humor then presses upon to the retina. And that is how the damage to the retina starts. So the first complaint of the patient of glaucoma is pain in the eye. Then if he ignores the pain in the eye, then there is a starting of the visual loss. Initially the nasal fibers are damaged, so temporal field of vision is lost. Then the temporal fibers are damaged, so the nasal field of vision is lost. Gradually the field of vision gets expanded and it becomes the peripheral field of vision gets completely blocked. The person can still see the central portion, But at the later stages, even the central field of vision is lost and the person gets completely blind. So this is the progressive stage of the development of visual loss in the glaucoma. So now coming to the Viva questions which may be asked in today's practical. First is, what is blind spot? So what is blind spot? Now it is the area in the optic disc which does not contain any visual receptors. Now because it does not contain any visual receptors, any light that falls onto it cannot be projected onto the image formation. So that is why this area of every normal individual will not be able to produce any image. So that is why it is known as blind spot. Another name is physiological scotoma. Why it is called physiological scotoma? Because scotoma means loss of patch of visual field. And because it is present in normal individual, it is known as physiological scotoma. And it is because of lack of visual receptors on the optic disc. As I said, it does not contain any rods and cones. So no image formation occurs on the optic disc. That is why it is the blind spot. Usually it is located 3 disc diopters medially to the fovea centralis. And that is why it is found in the temporal region. As I said, scotoma is the area of the visual field where no perception of light occurs. Optical axis means it is the axis from the anterior pole to the posterior pole of the eyeball. So this is the optical axis. Visual axis is from the fixation point to the fovea centralis. So visual axis is from the fixation point to the fovea centralis is the visual axis. It is different from the optical axis. Remember this. Then where in which condition unilateral scotoma, that means scotoma that is present only in one eye, is found. Usually it is found in demyelination of the optic nerve, and also cases of glaucoma of single eye. In that conditions unilateral scotoma is found. Bilateral scotoma means scotoma is which is present in both the eyes. Usually it is found in chronic alcoholism or in cases of vitamin B12 deficiency, or if there is a lesion of the visual cortex. In this condition bilateral scotoma may be found. So these are some of the Viva questions which may be asked in regarding this practical. So lastly, it's the Metzel time. So today's Metzel is, I am present in the middle of the visual pathway. Damage to the central portion causes bitemporal hemianopia and damage to the peripheral portion causes binasal hemianopia. Tell me thy, who am I? Tell me the answer, students, in the comment section below. And thank you for patiently listening to me in today's practical. Have a nice day. Bye bye.